So, talking about security, when I think that, for example, let's say security, in security, there are lots and lots of policies that are available. Now, there are many business critical applications that migrates to cloud and the rapid adoption of internet circuits as a business grade transport, maybe MPLS or maybe public community internet or maybe 3G or LTE, then a new and more optimal way to consume applications is actually being leveraged. So there is one thing that we almost get to know about, which is direct internet access. Now, what is this particular direct internet access? If you remember, we have implemented direct internet access in a way that we had a firewall configured in our lab, and then after that we had WAN edge 1 and then WAN edge 2 there. The WAN edge 1 and WAN edge 2 are connected to a switch, and that switch was connected to firewall, and the entire thing was an OSPF domain.
If you enjoyed the content of the video, don't forget to like and share the video and subscribe to our channel.
And the firewall was also connected to internet, maybe that particular internet going out towards the public sites. So this is something that we had the connectivity with, that was there and that was there. And then the same internet was actually connected to multiple other sites, right, where traditional LAN sites may be there. So when the communication was being initiated from the internal, you can say, LANs of our site number 12, and when that was going to the other sites, the communication used to go either via this or in a load balanced fashion for every other site. But if the communication was actually meant for the public domains and not the other side, then we routed that particular traffic from here to here to here to here. That's where we implemented NAT, and we can call that a glimpse of how direct internet access can also be done. So whenever anyone was trying to reach out to not the site, then the traffic was not being encapsulated into an IPsec tunnel, and it was being thrown as a filtered traffic via this particular firewall there. So as you know that the DIA allows the users to reach the cloud applications as well, because this is where your AWS connectivity would be there. This is where your Azure connectivity would be there, and you can reach out to that via. Now, most of the cloud applications provide highly recommended and not backhauling this particular traffic through a remote data center or a hub instead of going directly from the branch through the DI or so. So the security in terms of you can say, I would say, in terms of SD-WAN, there are lots of, you can say, benefits that you can get out of the security, because if you look at the Cisco's portfolio, then it is critical that an appropriate security mechanism such as firewalling or such as intrusion prevention systems, right, or you can say URL filtering, or I would say AMP, which is like the cloud service provided by Cisco itself. All of these particular services do provide extra layer of security in terms of having your enterprises secure. So the question facing like network architects now is, how should security services be consumed by the branches, which are over here? Because all of your controller sites might be there into a data center also, and the services might be hosted over there in the data center itself. So how can branches access that particular data from a secure point of view? So one way to consume the SD-WAN security is by leveraging Cisco's integrated, you can say, security applications within a rich portfolio of a powerful managed routers. For example, if you take or if you use routers like ISR 4000 series routers, right, on top of a native like application aware stateful firewall, so maybe you can deploy an FTD. So when you have that particular security workflow, that this is your ISR series router, and then that particular router is actually being connected with an FTD, and then this FTD will actually be managed by FMC, Firepower Management Center. When this particular scenario is also there into your, I would say, into your site, then you can leverage to enable the inline IDS, IPS, URL filtering, advanced malware protection facilities inside your site itself. So to the enablement or the visibility and the reporting of these particular applications are accomplished through a unified management console. And the vManage also gives you a glimpse about how you can use security. So the SD-WAN security can be consumed through cloud services or through regional hubs where there is something called VNF, virtual networking functions. So these virtual networking functions, if you have gone through that particular concept, this VNF is nothing but an SDN approach in order to install the firewall systems or ICE systems, or you can say the security features on a white box. You don't need to go for a firewall. You can actually use a white box and enable it with a VNF of doing firewalling there. You don't need to go for a you can say ICE or identity service engine, but you can just enable the service of posture assessment that ICE provides on a white box there. So that particular service, when you enable it by not going for the exact device, but for the white box, is called as virtual network functions. Okay, you're virtually installing that particular device, just like we have been using this Vanish Cloud and all. These can also be treated as a VNF because we have not been using any physical boxes, right? So you can install these images on your servers, and then that particular servers can put in line to WAN facing interfaces, and it'll like solve the purpose of that. So when you look at the SD-WAN security suites, then there are a couple of benefits that you get out of it. The one thing that you get is simple and automated security solution. The second thing that you get out of that is comprehensive SD-WAN security. And the third thing that you get is centralized management. That's something that you're gonna get. So when you look at simple and automated security solutions, the intent-based workflow, when we look at that, then that particular intent-based workflow, when we look at what's intent-based means that you basically there was traditional approach and then there is this intent-based networking. So in the traditional approach, you had to specify what do you want your routers to do, right? But in the intent based, you do not really care about how the router or how the device is going to take care of forwarding or receiving the traffic. You just specify your intent by configuring policy. So when you actually configure a policy, by having that policy inbound, the device is automatically going to act based on how you want it to act according to that particular policy. So you specify your intent by creating policy that you want this particular traffic to be routed through that particular transport, right? Or you want this much of traffic to be going through that much of transport. So you can specify your intent, and the device will automatically reshape its flow in a way that it can meet your expectations. So when we talk about the intent-based workflow, then it is designed for ease of configuration and deployment. And the workflow allows you to leverage the templates in order to include all of the relevant security capabilities and deployment of that particular policies on multiple devices at the same time, right? We can do that particular thing with the help of this. Because what's the solution over here? It's basically the template and policy in vManage, so that we can deploy the configuration of those particular things from the vManagement. Then if you talk about the comprehensive SD-WAN security, then with security capabilities such as we have seen, application aware enterprise firewall or IPS enablement on your WAN edge devices, you can restrict the access of certain internet destinations, right? If you do not want your devices, or if you do not want your internal nodes to communicate on a certain address, you can definitely do that, and you can restrict the the reachability of those particular devices by using that firewall that we have deployed, right? Enterprise firewall, which we had in our Vantage one. So if the traffic that is connected to this particular switch right? Maybe this is where the traffic is going. So it's going to go to firewall if the device is not going towards the other side, right? And the firewall can be configured in order to filter that unknown traffic. Something that we call as application aware, or I would say the enterprise firewall that we're deploying into our site. And then you can protect the internal networks as well from malwares or various other things because of the zone-based nature of that. If you have seen, then we had two interfaces over there, G0/0 and G0/1, right? G0/0 was made up of outside zone, which actually had a security level of 0, and G0/1 was made up of inside zone, which was actually made up of security level 100. So the communication can definitely go from here to here, right? From higher security to lower security. But when someone is trying to reach out to this particular node, it needs to go through this particular firewall. But communication from lower security to higher security is blocked by default. And you need to manually allow or whitelist whatever communication that you want, or from whoever you want that to be. That's another thing that you can do. So that's how security can actually benefit you. And after that, you definitely have the centralized management thing, which is basically you can deploy or troubleshoot or monitor the SD-WAN overlay solution with security capabilities across the WAN devices centrally via the GUI only. So that's something that is basically available over here. Now, apart from that, if you look into this particular perspective, then the zoning kind of comes into picture onto, I would say, manage as well. You do not really require to have a firewall, and you do not really require to have a specific device into your configurations that would help you with the security. So when like understanding that particular zoning, the zone configuration actually consists of some components over there. When we really talk about zone config, then this zone configuration requires what is going to be the source zone, what is going to be the destination zone, then after that what is going to be the firewall policy, then after that what is going to be the zone pair. So if you look at how the firewall or the SD-WAN firewall provides inspection or things like that, if you remember, inspection actually allows the traffic to be inspected when it reaches out from outside onto the firewall. If you remember that by default, when we wanted to communicate with a loopback that was there onto our 1.2.3.4, then we had to kind of go into the default policy map of this firewall, and then we said inspect ICMP, which means we asked our firewall to actually allow ICMP traffic from lower security zone to higher security zone. So when you want that particular inspection, your zone-based policies and your segment awareness needs to be done through that particular firewall only. So through network-based application recognition, it can classify over, you can say 1400. Your Vantage or your firewall can classify up to 1400 layer 7 applications for policy controls. You can like identify if Skype traffic needs to be allowed. You can identify if Teams traffic needs to be allowed. You can identify if anyone's playing game over there, does it needs to be allowed into that network also. If you even want to inspect that whenever there is any like email being sent, and if that email contains certain characteristics or certain, I would say, you can say, for example, a PDF that actually has some confidential data, you can even ask your firewall to track that particular thing and send it across, or deny that across. You can do this inspection at that particular level, which we call it as DPI. So deep packet inspection or layer 7 inspection, something that we call it. So these applications can be secured based on category or based on individual basis, depending on how the feature is actually leveraged into the policy. But because these policies are VPN aware, they can be applied within a zone between like zones of the same managed router or between the zones across the entire SD-WAN fabric. So a zone is group of, like you can say, one or more VPNs, and that particular VPN can group like VPNs into zones that allows you to establish security boundaries, okay, in your fabric also. If I even give you a glimpse of that, then what's going to happen is, for example, if you have like similar thing that when we use this particular firewall here, we can actually zone it into this side or we can actually zone it into that side. And if you want to allow that particular traffic, if you want to inspect that traffic, if you want to pass that traffic, and if you want to drop that traffic, these are multiple options that are going to be available when you actually configure that particular zones onto your firewalls or onto your managers or so. So within a given firewall policy, there are multiple matches that can actually be done. When I said, if there are three actions that you can take, one is called as inspect, as I said, the other one is called as pass, and the other one is called as drop. These are the options that you can use whenever a traffic hits onto that particular firewall from outside. So when the action is set to inspect, then the enterprise firewall tracks the state of that particular flows and creates sessions. And since it maintains the state of that particular flow, the return traffic is allowed, and there is no need to configure a separate policy to allow that particular response traffic. Make sense? Like when we say inspect ICMP into our policy map, then we don't need to every time specify who is going to send that particular traffic. Any traffic that is going to come for that particular session is going to be allowed. But if you just say pass, then this action allows the router to forward that particular traffic from one zone to another zone. So the pass action does not track the state of that particular flow, and you can say the firewall does not create sessions when the action is set to pass. The pass action, like by default, allows the traffic to flow in only one direction. So you must have correspondingly corresponding policy to allow the response traffic as well. So what's going to happen? It's if you say pass ICMP, then when someone from outside tries to ping you, right? Then your device is going to give you a ICMP echo reply, right? But that reply will fail because you probably might only have passed the ICMP traffic from outside zone to inside zone. And if you have not explicitly allowed ICMP traffic from inside to outside, then that particular traffic is going to be failed. That's what pass does. But inspect does takes care of like making sure that the reply traffic also reaches out on the source. And drop simply drops that particular traffic over there. So based on the flow of traffic between zones, the enterprise firewall is, we can say, divided into two categories. Okay, one, it is divided into something called, I think, intra-zone base. And the second one is, we can say, inter-zone based. So that's basically what intra-zone base and inter-zone base. So intra-zone base and inter-zone base, these are the two ways about how firewalls are divided into. Intra-zone base is about the communication whenever the zones are actually, or whenever the managers are part of the same side, and the traffic actually needs to be allowed between the vantage of one side and the vantage of other side. Those are like categorized into same side. But inter-zone base is going to be on the vanages when the traffic is actually going to, I would say, different, even different VPNs. So if I say from VPN 1 to VPN 1 when the communication needs to happen, maybe on from vantage 1 and from vantage 2, there is VPN 1 and then there is VPN 2 and then there is VPN 1 as well. And this is how direct connectivity. So if the traffic is going from VPN 1 to VPN 1, that is called as intrazone. And if the traffic is going from VPN 1 to VPN 2, that is going to be interzone. Okay, this is something that you need to allow. So how the firewall policy, whether to allow it or whether to not allow it, is going to be configured. You simply need to create a firewall policy. You create your zones and you apply your zone pairs, and you select whether you want to pass that particular traffic or whether you want to deny that particular traffic. That's something that is how firewalling or enterprise firewalling can actually be done.